Okay, so we're live now. Okay. Hi guys. I'm here with Toni Marie Fabiano. This is her interview. Now, Toni Marie has been very quiet and humble throughout the years. She did other interviews before. So we're going to ask her some questions and see where she is today. Now, I want to start off with, how we know each other.
Well, first off, it's been a long time
Yes.
since I've seen you, and you look very happy with your children, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So we met back. Actually, you were friends with my sister.
Yes.
You and all your guy friends and the girlfriends. So that was all one big clique.
Yes.
I met you through my ex-husband, which was Michael D. Leonardo, Mikey Scars, and he had owned a fruit store up in Harlem at the time, and he used to take you kids to go work with him, try to get you off the street. So that was one good thing he did. And so that's how you were in my home quite a few times, and then you were in my family's homes later on. So I know you since you were young. You were at my wedding. You were at the church. You came.
Yes.
And that's how it all started.
Yes. And I actually got to make a nice memory with you. And it was a nice memory for me. I know things didn't work out with you and Michael. Unfortunately, things happen. I look back at my life and my mom and my dad. Things don't happen. As you get older, you're an adult and you understand certain things. But you have an amazing story to tell. But I want to start off with talk about your upbringing. Your father was a wise guy. You come from a mobbed up family. It's a very interesting thing. Me,
Unfortunately, no, but go ahead.
unfortunately, my family, I have no one in the mob. I grew up surrounded by the mob. My mom and dad were separated at the age of 7 years old. My father lived in Manhattan, and things happen. But you have an amazing story because your whole family was in the mob.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's even on both sides of my mom and my dad, because everybody thinks it's just my dad, and that alone, there's plenty. But we grew up in a building in Brooklyn, 12-family apartment building, and we lived downstairs, meaning my mother, my father, I, and my sister and my brother, and my grandmother, my great grandmother lived upstairs. Now she had 9 brothers and sisters. So they came to see their mother often in the building, and we lived downstairs. So there was always a constant amount of family. You're talking 9, she had 9 brothers, 9 sisters, plus their wives and their husbands. So there was quite a few people that the headquarters was up in my grandmother's. So we were all very close. And my father, when I grew up, my father was a bartender. He had a couple of different jobs. So I thought more so that his uncles, were the ones that were involved. But I was a kid, so I didn't realize till later on. I just saw these guys, these good-looking guys, tough guys, tough voices, all fancied up, dressed, great, and jewelry and pinky rings. And you eventually get that these are different type of men. And then later on, you find out who was, and mostly were my grandmother's brothers. And then later on, my brother, and then my ex-husband. So it follows suit. And then I have on my mother's side an uncle that was involved in the mob, and he died. So that's what I was brought up in, and that's what I know. Men like that. Not firemen, not cops, but men like that. We were surrounded by that. And so obviously that's what I gravitated to later on. But that's how, the beginning of my life with my family members being who they were. And that's where we stop and answer your question. I hope,
And you know what? I know for you growing up, it basically becomes a normal thing.
It is normal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a normal thing.
right. They don't work 9 to 5. They're around a lot. They're funny. They're crazy. They're spending money like crazy. And they're different than your friends' fathers, but you never really compared. You just went about it, and this is how my family is, and this is how my father is, and it was normal. It was normal for me.
And you know what? They were all good people. I was fortunate to meet your father, and I know your family, and they're all good people. But what time in your life did you realize that your family was in the mob?
Wow. I can't pinpoint a time. I would have to say my teens. That's when I started to realize it would be in my teens. But I never asked. I never asked the question. I would see things. Even before my teens. I don't even know. Maybe I was 8, 9 years old, and I'd be up in my grandmother's house because I was always up there. And every now and then, a brother would show up, and he'd tell my grandmother, "Aunt Sen, do me a favor, put this away." And it was a brown bag, and then she would put it in the spare room and in this little leather box that she had. And every time you'd go look, she'd go, "Get away from there." And I didn't think anything really of it until it kept happening, until I got older, until I realized kind of step by step what was going on in my family. But I never said anything. And it was either money or it was guns, pistols.
Yeah.
As
Wow.
crazy as that is for me to say at that age.
Now, there's all, I know you growing up on the Avenue, and you were an original Bath Avenue girl. Could
Yeah.
you tell me a little about that?
Yes, that's true. We were 13, 14, a whole bunch of us girls. Two of my friends lived on Bath Avenue. I didn't live on Bath Avenue. I was a couple of blocks away. And we decided to form this little group, the Bath Avenue Girls. And, even had jackets made and all that. And, we walked around like we thought our shit didn't stink. But we were good girls. We were always good girls, respectful. And we just did our thing. So, yeah, it started back then.
Good. And I know there was one time, there's a story of Pat and Albie in the neighborhood back in the day that you dated Albie. What was Albie like? I remember Albie when I was a kid. He was a wild kid. Eventually, he was murdered later on in life. You dated him. I'm just curious of, how he was, and what age were you when you dated him?
Well, we were actually 15, 16. And we used to hang out in Brooklyn on 86th Street, 24th Avenue, the roller skating ring. And we all hung out there. And, everybody had a boyfriend, a girlfriend hanging out. And there was Albie, and he was a good kid. I have to say, when I first met him, he was quiet. And right away, I don't know, we gravitated to each other. And then, I find out that he likes to get high, and his brother's a lunatic. And I was the one that wanted to help him because I seen he was a good kid. He wasn't like his brother. There was a different side to him. And so I wanted to help him and make him become a good kid. And my father found out. And, they had a bad reputation. So my father went crazy, tried to stop that. And, we were sneaking and all that. But he really had a good heart. Unfortunately, the kid grew up in a bad environment, seeing his father die. His brother Pat was, crazy, crazy lunatic. And I don't know if he had to try to follow in his footsteps, but thinking about it, he wasn't like him. But it wound up to be that, he got involved in a lot of things. And obviously he got shot at a young age after his brother.
Wow.
So.
Now, you meet Mikey Scars. Tell me about how you met Mikey Scars.
I was working that night. I think it was a Thursday night. I was out with my girlfriends, and we says, "Oh, come on, let's go get something to eat." And we went to Circles. I don't know if you remember Circles on Bay Parkway.
Yes, I do.
And then downstairs was Players. So we went to eat, and then we went down to just have a drink by the bar. And we're all talking, hanging out, and this big tall guy, his name is Stevie Sleeves, big tall guy came over and said, "Oh, my friend over there would like to have a drink with you." Now, when I looked over, I knew who he was from the neighborhood. He was one of the older guys from the neighborhood. So everybody knows everybody in Bensonhurst. And he was one of the older guys. And the gentleman that came over to me, I said, I don't want to have a drink with him, because now I'm saying to myself, what's this old guy want with me at the time? And then he came back, come on, just one little drink. So, all right, he came over, we had a drink. So he didn't know who I was at the time, because I was 10 years younger than him, but he knew my family members. So he bought me a drink, and then I said his name, and he looked at me, and I said, I'm Frankie Fabiano's sister, Robert, and that was it. He was like, oh my God, I know your whole family. Where'd you come from? And I said, well, I think I'm a lot younger than you. So that's where I met him in Players in Brooklyn.
That's pretty cool. Now, what made you fall in love with this guy? I mean, it's a story where, you meet somebody, you fall in love, and, we know things didn't work out, but it's very interesting, because the way things happen, happened to me, happens to a lot of people in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, he was 10 years older than me. So I was 19, he was 29. So now you have to realize, now I know he knows my whole family. I feel safe about that. So he's probably a good guy. But then, he would pick me up in a Lincoln and always dressed, always suited up. He always liked the suit and tie, and took me to places I've never been before. Manhattan, all over, you name it, I was there, Connecticut. And so I was impressed, what this guy, wow, I can't believe it. He's a great guy. And he wants to take me out. And so at the same time, I was intimidated by him, because then when we started dating, and now we're hanging out and going to dinner with people his age and older than me. So I kind of got a little intimidated by that, but I never let him know that. So he had a charm about him. He had a charm about him that he could impress a woman.
Well, you know what, Mikey, back in the day when I was a kid, I have to be honest, he was actually one of the better guys in the neighborhood. I mean, you know how the neighborhood was. You had a lot of bad guys in the neighborhood. Mikey was actually one of the better guys. We would toss the football around. He would pick us up. He tried to put us in the right direction. And unfortunately, we had our own destiny, but I want to get to, so eventually you get married. I went to your wedding. I was a part of that. And I seen that. You had a mobbed up wedding. Frankie the Chico was there. Your Uncle George, your cousin Georgie.
Uncle
Georgie. And tell me about when Mikey Scars flips. How does your life change?
Okay, so we're moving ahead now.
Yeah. I know it's a tough question.
No, it's not a tough question. It's a crazy question, because I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you this or trying to explain. I think shock. Although being married to him for 17 years, I'm going to say I did see some signs. I didn't react to them, but I saw some signs, and then I put it in the back of my head and I left it there. And so it was a shock, but there was a shock before that he flipped, which I don't know, you didn't ask me that question, but before he flipped, before he went to jail, he wound up having a second family.
There you go.
So the question that you're asking me is, what was my feeling when he did that? Well, just imagine, not too long before that, I found out he had a kid, a son with another woman, while I was trying to get pregnant, doing all kinds of procedures. In fact, in vitro was one of them. So if you really want to know that question, the answer to that, I thought I was in another world. This wasn't happening. None of this was happening. This can't be true. It's a dream and I'm going to wake up from it, but did I really know that eventually this would happen, marrying a guy like that? Yeah, that was kind of there. That was kind of there. So it wasn't right. Wasn't right.
So Mikey Scars flips, and I know he flips, and he's not even looking at a lot of time, and that's a tough thing too. I mean, when I cooperate with the government, as you know, I stand on everything I did in my life. I was looking at my life destroyed. I don't understand how guys flip for 7 years, 10 years, and stuff like that. But everyone has their own story. Now the thing is, when he
Let me stop you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but somebody made a comment a little earlier that I thought she didn't like rats. I thought she didn't bother with rats. Something to that effect. Does she know that Jimmy ratted? Yeah, I do know that Jimmy ratted. I know all about it. He asked me to come on the show, and I watched some of his episodes prior to this, and I saw he was humble. I saw that he went to work. He didn't go into the witness protection program and then get out and then continue to do things, continue to hang out with certain guys. I don't believe in ratting. I don't. I told Jimmy this when we spoke prior. I don't believe in ratting. I'm sorry. Because if you're in that life and you want to be a tough guy, you want to walk around like a tough guy. Now, a lot of guys killed guys that were rats. Okay, they're no longer here. Their wives, their mothers, their children, they don't have them. And now these guys that are killers turn rat, they got to pass. So me being the family members, I take it on that level. So I don't like ratting. That's the answer. I don't like ratting. I feel you do something and you have to be a man and do the time. So you have to look at it in a lot of different ways. So yeah, that's my answer. I just don't believe in ratting for a lot of reasons. It's not. I don't even think it's good for the guy that's ratting. I think it's very hard for them. So that's my take on that.
Well, even though I cooperated, I agree with you. I don't like a lot of rats either. So I stand with you on that too. Now Mikey Scars flips, and of course he is looking to testify against John Jr.
Correct.
Now, the thing is, you get subpoenaed, and you end up testifying on John Gotti Jr.'s behalf. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So my ex-husband went to jail, then he ratted, then he took it back, and then he went back in. But before he ratted, he had a case in Atlanta that he was fighting. And I had threw him out of the house already, so he wasn't home. And Junior was away. And then when I found out about the girl and the kid and all that, he happened to call me from prison. Now you have to understand we were close with John Jr. because my husband was up his ass, excuse my French, all the time. So Uncle John is what my son called him. And I got close to him. We were like a brother. So he called me from prison because he heard about what happened and he knew, how bad I was and my son was, how upset we were. And he really just wanted to say, I'm sorry, if you need anything, I know he loved you and stuff like that. And it was just a phone call. So Michael didn't rat at that point. Now, then he sent word he would like to see my son. If my son would like to go up to see him, that would be great. So I thought about that for a couple of weeks. And then the kid, Noel Modica, who I grew up with, and I trusted him. And he's my son's godfather for confirmation. He asked me, Toni Marie, if you want me to take him up, he goes, I'll take him. You don't have to worry. So I didn't think anything. I asked my son if he wanted to go. He said he wanted to go, and he went. Now, while this is happening, Michael flips. Okay. My son goes to see John. He comes home. I ask him, how was Uncle John? What'd you talk about? He says, well, we talked about sports. We talked about girls. We talked about school. And then we talked about my father. And I said, oh, what did he say about your father? And he said nothing. He said that your father loves you. You know that, Michael. And, stay strong for your mom, and everything will be okay. When my ex-husband found out that my son went up there, he conjured something in his head that, and maybe he was right, I don't know, that John Jr. was trying to convince my son to convince his father not to cooperate. And I guess he told the FBI, whoever he was working with, that, and they hit John Jr. with obstruction of justice. So now you put my son in the middle of John Gotti Jr. in jail, a big case coming up. You're in jail. Then he ratted. How could you do this? Are you insane? What are you doing? And no, well, John was trying to prove a point that he has access to our son, meaning that maybe he would hurt him. And this is what they came up with. And so from that, I was asked to testify.
How was that testifying? Because I testified. How was that testifying?
I got to tell you the truth. That was hard.
Yeah.
It was a little scary. I knew what I was walking into, but you know what? I don't know. I've been around a lot of tough people in my life. The women were more tough than the men in my family. And I guess I just have some kind of toughness inside, although I have a tremendous heart. I really do. I cry at the drop of the hat. So I don't know. I did it. I just picked up my boots and I went and did it. And I did it for a lot of reasons. How it came about, that's another story, but I did it for a lot of reasons. But it was frustrating, but I got through it.
Now, to involve a woman when you're in this life, and I find it quite unusual. How did that make you feel that you had to testify? I mean, I got to say it the way it is.
No, somebody rang my bell one night, and it was a gentleman, and he had an envelope in his hand. And now don't forget, I just went through finding out my husband had a kid with another woman. He built her a house in Staten Island. I live in Staten Island. My son is destroyed. My brother's in jail. He's going to go to jail. He's in jail. He's ratting. He's not ratting. So I asked this guy who he was, and he was a private investigator for John Gotti Jr. Now, when I first saw him, this gentleman, he was like, something was like he didn't want to be there, or like there was just something. He seemed like a really nice guy. And I said, well, what do you want? So he says, I have this paper that I got to give you. I really don't want to do that. Maybe if you can invite me in, or if you want to go somewhere, we could talk, as you're a private investigator for John. I said, all right, come inside and sit down. And he sat down, and he was a gentleman. I have to say, I can't recall his name. He was a gentleman. And he explained to me that, everything that went on, he feels terrible, but John wants to subpoena you. Well, here's a subpoena for you to testify for him about the visit that your son had with him. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I said, you know what? Tell him I want to meet him. And I don't know. I can't think about this right now, what I want to do. So we did that. I met him in Queens in his office. And the private investigator was there. Charlie Carnisi was there. That was his attorney at the time. And I sat down with him, and he said, how are you? And I said, how am I? He came out of jail at that point. And I said, well, how do you think I am? And he said, no, I understand. He goes, but, you're just going to say the truth. You're not going to lie for me. And I said, no, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say the truth. But I don't know if I want to do this yet. This is hard. And he said, no, I understand, but your ex-husband put you in this predicament, put your son in this predicament. After all, he says, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have that house, the house on the water he was talking about. So I looked at him. I said, I wouldn't have that house. Your ex-husband, this, that. So I said, okay. I said, so you want me to testify for you, right? He goes, yeah, again, you're just going to say the truth. I said, okay, let me ask you something. Would your father ever put a woman on the stand? And he said, no. I said, would your father or did your father ever make your mother go to court anytime that he was on trial? No. Would you put your wife on the stand? No. I says, oh, not unlike your father. He goes, I'm not like my father. I'm not my father. I said, I know you're not. So right there and then, I knew, listen, he was using me. I mean, let's face it. The guy didn't care everything that happened to us. He was thinking, I got to get out of jail. I got 6 kids, 5 kids. I haven't many kids he had at the time. He's got 1 million kids. And, but you want me to do it. And I said, okay. So I thought about it. And I was getting threatening letters actually at the time when this happened. And my mother was, and my sister, that they were going to kill my son. So, and then through the grapevine, I was hearing that, the feds, they didn't want me to testify for him. And then street guys didn't want me to testify for him, which I thought that was odd. I didn't know why. Later on, I realized they didn't like him or whatever. They didn't trust him, whatever it was. So now, taking all this into consideration, I said, hold on now. I got to think about what's right for me and my son, because there's nobody here to help me. My brother was in jail. My father was dead. I had one uncle left, my Uncle Georgie, and there was nothing he could do. And I did sit with him and ask him, and he said, listen, he says, you go to court if you want to go to court, and you just say the truth. And that's it. And that's what I did. But then he beat that case. Well, it was a hung jury. But when I told him I was going to testify, I said, listen, I'm going to do it. And just promise me that you won't put my son on the stand. And I promise you, if you do this for me, my kids will be indebted to you and all this stuff. But I had in my own mind also why I wanted to do it. If I do this, then the people that are threatening my son, which I don't think were real tough guys, big gangsters, because they ain't going to send me a letter and tell me that they're going to do that. They would have killed him. But still, I didn't know who it was, or I had a feeling who it was. And I said, let me go on the stand. And people will know that I'm not on the side of my ex-husband, the rat. And then also my brother cooperated. No, I'm not. I'm still here. We never left. They left us out here to dry when they cooperated. So now I got to protect my son. Now I got to be strong enough to go to court and do this. And hopefully everything will all go away. And so he had a hung jury with that. And then he had another trial. And they promised me that they wouldn't use my son. And they did. So that was a big disappointment. I know, John told me it was Charlie Carnesi. He wanted to do it. Listen, you're the client, you're the boss, and you tell him what you want to do. In the end, he gives you his advice, his lawyer advice, and then in the end. But that's okay. So we had to do that. Second time, I had to testify, and my son had to testify. Well, anyway, that was a hung jury. So 2 trials he won because of me and my son. Not that I want anything from anybody. My son, we never got a thank you. Got it from John, I'm sorry, and his mother. His wife, his children, whatever. They're going to be indebted to us. Everybody's full of shit. You understand? Everybody's out for themselves, especially in that life. Yeah. So...
I'm sorry you had to go through that. I know it was a hard time. It's a rough time for you and your son. That's for sure. How did your life change when your family member flips? You you people were very well respected. Your whole family was mobbed up, and then all of a sudden, you know, say for example, your brother flips, Mikey Scars flips, so you're going from a hero to a zero. So how does that feel? I mean, and you had nothing to do with it, but you get stigmatized by it.
Well, we were left hanging. We were left out in the cold, holding the bag. My ex-husband probably thought we would have left. I think my ex-husband, on ratting on my brother, because he knew I wasn't going to leave. First of all, I wasn't with him anymore, and I wouldn't go with him with my son. So I think him ratting on my brother, he felt then we would all go with my brother, and then he's not the bad guy. He could get to see his son. Everybody would be in the witness protection program having a hell of a good time. But that didn't happen. So, it's so surreal. It's so surreal because you're brainwashed from a little girl. You're brainwashed. Don't watch cop shows. The cops are bad. Even when I got married to Michael, I was watching a cop show. He came in. What are you watching that for? Turn that shit off. So you were brainwashed. And then being born into that family, those men, that life, and that's all we knew. It was like, this can't be. There's no way. There's no way that they're gonna rat. It can't. It's holy shit, man. Like, what's gonna happen to us now? It was so surreal, and I just shock. Just every emotion that you could think of. Scary, very scary situation, because now they're changing their way and their thoughts, and they're on the other side, and we're still over here like, wait, that's not what you told us. That's not what you brainwashed us. That's not what we grew up with. How do we just stop believing in that? And people are going to look at us now funny, and they're going to call us names, and they sent newspaper clippings saying rats, about my ex-husband and my brother, and calling me, all of us, rats. I'm not a rat. My son's not a rat.
You're definitely no rat. That's for sure. Your son's definitely no rat.
So
you got caught up with all this.
Right. But they don't. My brother and my ex-husband don't think that way. They don't think that way at all. We get the blame for a lot of things, and it's sad. It's really sad. They're cowards. They're cowards. So they want to talk about us behind the scene, like recently, and make comments and say bad things, and talk to my ex-daughter-in-law. I heard things. My ex-husband and my brother supposedly seeing somebody that was his enemy that ratted on him at one time and talked about us and said that we're all crazy, all us women, me, my mother, and my sister. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
How do you do that? What are you thinking about? That's just, it's narcissist. It's narcissism. They care about themselves. Bottom line. They only care about themselves. I can't say that enough. They're selfish, and they love themselves. So I know I went ahead of you a little bit, right?
No. You're actually doing good. You're doing good. And I want to ask you, Frankie the Chico is your cousin. Any stories about him?
You know what? I don't have any, men mob stories. The only thing I could tell you is that my father loved him dearly. He was like a brother to my father, not cousins. They were first cousins. His father, my uncle Boozy, Jimmy the Chico, and my grandmother were brother and sister. So he was older, a lot older than me, obviously, and he was a little older than my father. So him and my father were like best friends. And he was really a great guy. He gave anything to my father. My father was broke for a lot of years, and he gave my father a lot of money. He took care of him. And what I picked up on him. He used to make a fuss over me before his daughter Gracie was married. He used to say, "This kid, her face." He used to constantly go crazy over me. I'm not trying to, show off, but he used to come in. He used to grab me. He used to bite me, tease me, kiss me up, and there was a situation one time that was in our house on Bay 13 with my cousin Scott and my father's brother, and my cousin Frankie was there, and he was the guy who was trying to help the situation, the cousins. And let me tell you, if he liked you, loved you, that was it. If he didn't like you, and he didn't like my ex-husband, it's funny, he didn't like my ex-husband.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, he was a great guy, big guy. He was a serious type of guy. Like all his sisters and his aunts, they were just all crazy. They would have fun and laugh and talk dirty and take their shirts off, and he would go crazy. He was like, "Women, don't even do that." And behind his back, they used to give him the finger. Oh, it just funny. But he was a fair guy. He was a pretty fair guy. I was afraid of him when I was young because, he was huge. He was a big guy, and he had that face. From what I understand, I don't have any street stories, obviously, but from what I understand, a lot of people say he was pretty tough.
Yeah, Frankie the Chico was a class act. Me as a kid, I remember him. We went swimming in his pool a couple of times, and what he did was he tested us. He actually put $300 bills on a dresser to see if any one of us would touch them when we were at his house, and none of us touched them, and so we passed that test. But Frankie was definitely a one of a kind guy, and once he passed away, Anthony Sparrow stopped putting on the fireworks shows. But he was very much loved by a lot of people. I know that for sure.
Yes, he was. We loved him very much, and when he got killed, my father was devastated. He lost a brother, and we were all devastated. And that was another tragedy that happened in our lives.
And we know, your family knows, if Frankie the Chico is around at this time, history changes. You will never ever get to be testifying on that table. That's for sure, on that chair. That's 100%.
Oh, me? Yeah, no, that would have never happened.
That's never happening ever.
No, he would have never allowed me to do that. And he didn't like my ex-husband. I don't know why he didn't like him, but he did not like him. When I first started dating him, like I said, my father didn't want me to go out with him, mainly because he felt he was a street guy. And of course, he didn't want me to be with a street guy. But my cousin Frankie, that was a different situation. And I really don't know why he didn't like him. But I know for a fact that he didn't. So.
Well, I know you have a manuscript. I'm also writing. I do a lot of writing. And you're looking to put a book out there. I know you stopped short. You're looking for an editor. You're looking for a writer. You want to take some stuff out. You want to add some stuff in. Now, can you tell me a story out of your manuscript? Just one short story?
Well, about which situation? There's a few situations. So
anything.
I'll tell you this. There was a time that, when in my marriage, Michael was going out a lot, and I was suspicious that he was cheating on me, but I never had any proof. Well, one day I went shopping with my son, and the reason why I picked this story is because a lot of people out there that liked him, and you could still like him, but you're going to hear the real person that he is. Okay, so besides the fact that I was trying to have a child with him through procedures, and he went and had a child with this other girl while I went through that, and it is just so. Getting back to the person that he is, me and my son went out shopping, and we came home, and we lived on 18th Avenue in Brooklyn, and when you walked in the front door, there was a little vestibule, and then there was a couple of steps, and then there was my door into the apartment. The door was open, and my son went outside to play, and I heard Michael on the phone upstairs, and I heard him saying, "Just get dressed. Yeah, we're gonna go out. Get dressed. Whatever." And something just came over me that I knew he was talking to a girl. So I ran up the steps. When I ran up the steps, he closed the phone real quick, and I said, "Who's on the phone?" And he said, "Louie." I said, "Give me the phone. I want to see the phone. Give me the phone." I tried to grab it out of his hand, but he wouldn't give it to me. It was Louie Black. My Brooklyn accent comes out. So I was yelling at him. I knew it was a girl. And anyway, so that night he was going out, and I went out with my girlfriend, and he came home early. He must have known that maybe I was going to find out. And that weekend, 2 days later, I think that was a Thursday. Saturday, I had to go to a party. My girlfriend's boyfriend at the time, they were having a little get together downtown Brooklyn, and he would never want to be with my friends and their boyfriends or husbands because they weren't like him, like who he was. And I know people are going to say, she knew who he was, she knew what she was getting into when I say that, but it's the truth. And he never wanted to come, and he made me go alone, and I felt really bad. Everybody was there with their husbands. And I said, this guy must be out again. I go home. He wasn't home. He comes in the door. I'm standing by the steps. And I said, where were you? Well, where was I? I said, I know you were out with a girl again. And then, I was cursing, carrying on. You're sick. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. So to get him mad, I said, you know what? I should have slept with that. I should have went home with that guy tonight. I should have slept with that guy tonight. And I might have even said it even nastier to get him. And he slapped me in my face. Wow. Slapped me, his whole palm. He cracked me right across my face that my jaw was killing me. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. And then the next day, obviously I was mad, but I stood. I never told my Uncle Georgie, who was alive at the time. I never mentioned it to my brother, nothing. And this was before they went away. And the next day he goes, it wasn't that bad. I didn't hit you that bad. Come on, I'm gonna take you to New York. We'll go buy you clothes. We'll go clothes shopping. And I went, and I just said, I'll never forget this. I won't forget it. And so yeah, he was cheating on me with all these girls. My best friend, the girl Carla from Marboys. I know I've said it a million times. Yeah, I'm saying it again. And God knows who else. And they all knew, and everybody, behind my back knew. And so yeah, he slapped me across my face because I said that. Meanwhile, you're the one out there doing all the dirty work, cheating on me. I just said that just to try to get a rise, So yeah, that's what he did.
That's something, I'll tell you. Any regrets?
You know what? I don't have any regrets because for one reason only, I have my son. I regret that my son has him for a father. That's the only way I could say it. I'm sorry for my son. And I try to take that upon myself all the time. I try to compensate more for the father not being around and the father doing what he did and all the hurtful things his father did. There's a lot of things. We can't sit here for 3 hours on here and tell you all the things he would say. Just hurtful things. So I don't regret because I have my son. I should have listened to my father. I really should have, but I didn't. And here we are today, and I've moved on. I'm happily married. I have 3 grandchildren. I love them. I try to be a good person. I'm not perfect, far from it. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. But unlike them, they don't own up to what they've done. They never own up to what they've done. And they use us out here as a scapegoat. And because of that, our families aren't talking, cousins, nephews, nieces. It all stems from them. They don't get that, but as soon as we open our mouths and we don't agree with their decision because it's their way or the highway, you're the bad person, and then they'll talk about you, and then they'll go talk to your enemies and befriend your enemies. It's crazy. It's really insane, and that's why when I say about the ratting, it's to me, ratting is and then it's kind of demonic that these guys rat and then talk to the FBI and then they're friends with them and everything. And that's the exchange. It's kind of demonic to me. The exchange is, let's get these guys that are big killers, leave these other guys, let them cooperate, and they could go scot-free. But what about the family members? It's a cruel world. Yes, we enjoyed a lot of it, no doubt we did. But getting older and seeing young girls or young guys, first of all, it's not like it was. It's obviously it's still around. Whatever, who cares? None of my business. We just want peace. Me and my family, we just want peace, and we just want everybody to be well, and everybody move on and make their own decisions in life.
We have 720 people in the chat room watching and making comments.
Oh boy.
Yes. Now, if you knew another woman that was getting ready to get involved with a Wiseguy, what would be the advice you would give to her?
I could just say one word, run, but obviously you have to explain. You have to explain yourself, and you have to tell her everything that you went through. And that would be it, because this is a person that went through it. Nobody could say it better. Just like when you tell your stories of, when you robbed the bank or, so on and so forth. The person that went through it is the person that can tell you. And I would really just tell them my story, and I think they would run on their own after they heard that. But all jokes aside, you live and learn. We make mistakes, and they could listen. They may not listen. They may do it anyway. But it's very heartbreaking. It's very sad. It's a sad life. It's a heartbreaking life. A lot of people died and are no longer with us. And life is too short. And I guess you realize that as you get older. So.
And another thing is, back then when you're married to these wise guys and in your household, your father's a wise guy, the woman really has no say. So right now you're a powerful female because you got your life back. You stand on your own 2 feet. You came from, this heartache and this pain. So, you're a very powerful woman.
Well, a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I don't know how you did it." A lot of my friends, "Oh my God, we couldn't have did it when he had the kid, and we feel so bad." And listen, I don't know how I did it. I did it. I had good support, some family members, and very good friends that helped me, and some that weren't there for me that should have been there. But I come from a tough family, and that's embedded in me. And I guess that just took over. Like, you have no choice. You have to do this. For my son's sake, I have to do this. I'm there for my son when he got into a car accident, or, when he tried pot, or, when he graduated, or confirmation, or when he got married, when he had his first daughter, his first child, when he had his second one, his third one, his divorce. I was there. I did all that. Me. And women back in the day, older women, they didn't stick up for themselves. They just went along with it. My grandmother included. But how much could you sit back and take? How much? It's not fair. It's totally not fair. And so when they tell me you don't realize how strong you are, I go, no, I don't, because I had to go on medication. I had to go to therapists. I had to go to psychiatrists. I had to get up off that floor. You want to know more? I can keep going. I can keep going and tell you. I'm not looking for sympathy, and I'm not looking for anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm telling you what happened. This is the ramification. This is what happened from him doing A, B, and C. And it can happen to anybody. And I almost wound up in the loony bin, but thank God I didn't. For another person, for a man, for a woman, it's crazy. It's crazy. Don't do it. It's as hard as it may be. Verbal abuse, physical abuse. It's sometimes verbal is worse. So I don't know. Just you got to find that inner strength and find somebody that you're close with, that you look up to. My sisters, my life, and my mother. My mother's been through hell and back, and it's all one big bunched up garbage. It's, the devil. It's the devil. It's the devil. That life is the devil, and you do what you got to do, Jimmy.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. And thank God you got your mother and your sister, and you got a good support system.
Thank you.
Because, listen, you're a strong woman. You're beautiful, and you've been through a lot. Now, I'm not going to keep it too long. We're almost here for an hour. And I want to take some comments from the people in the chat room. If you have anything you want to ask Toni Marie, this is the opportunity to do it now. So I'm going to pick and choose.
You got the haters out there, I'm sure.
Really, there ain't too many. A lot of them are calling you beautiful.
Oh.
So.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
She's tough as nails, true old school mob wife survivor. Her book will be awesome.
Thank you. I really wanted to do my cookbook.
Well, that'd be great if you do a cookbook. One guy says, do you ever go back to the neighborhood?
You know what? Not often. And once in a while, if I do go back, I got to be honest with you, it's very depressing for me. So I try not to, because there's a lot of memories, good and bad. I don't like it. It's just a weird feeling for me. So, and it's not the same, otherwise, the neighborhood with the people, but so I try not to go back there,
One person says she's great. I'm trying to read these as it go. And then she says, one person goes, who was her father? Her father was Robert Fabiano. He was a wise guy in the Gambino crime family. That's who Live and Let Live. It's depressing for me. I love Toni Marie.
I love you too, whoever that was. That might be my husband. We forget about my husband now. 2 years. I'm married.
That's awesome. And 50 more together with you too.
Thank you. I met a wonderful man. Wonderful man. Changed my life.
The sunflowers are very pretty.
He bought them for me. Thank you. He bought them for me. He's thoughtful.
Great story. And I guess if you want to volunteer, anything else?
Not really. I mean, I appreciate you asking me to come on. I went on a few other shows and I haven't in a while. And my book, I kind of put that down, and because at the time.
Let me interrupt you. I have someone said, did she like the Mob Wives TV show?
Oh God. I actually was on there one episode. I was trying to get my book out, and it was a breast cancer party that we had, and they came, Karen, and they came, and actually when I was doing my book, there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Bell. He did the paintings for my book. So he came in from Maryland. One of the paintings, we were going to unveil it. They wanted me on it to fight with Carla. I wanted to go on and fight with Carla, but my son, my mother, my family, they said, you just can't, you can't do that, because then you'll look just like her. So it was funny. It was hilarious. It is what it is. I don't know. Listen, I can never go on national TV and say some of the things that came out of their mouths. I'm not perfect, but that was rough. That was rough. And Carla, whatever. She's a pig. So what could I say?
All right. Okay.
Listen, my ex-husband said that. He admitted to it. So
One guy says, "Does your son still have a relationship with his dad?"
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Unfortunately.
Okay. Another person says, "What is your favorite food?"
My favorite food?
Yes,
Okay, I have a lot. Lasagna.
it's a good one.
God, I love everything. Oh God, rice balls. Who don't look like pot? Truthfully, I got it. Eggplant parmesan is my favorite.
I tell you, you cook a lot of dishes on Instagram. I see them.
Yeah, I do. I love to cook. My grandmother was a great cook. My mom's a great cook, so I enjoy it. It's really good. It's therapy. Actually, it's therapy for me.
I can imagine how good it is.
Yeah.
One person says, "What would you change from your life now to back then?"
I wouldn't change anything because I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And that, my age and everything I went through, this is it. God, we could plan, we could say we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. And then, he's the one who chooses our life and our plan. So no, I don't regret anything. I don't regret anything. The only thing I said early was I regret that my son got cheated out of a father. But
yeah, that's the sad part.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
And you know what? Look, I'm not going to defend Michael. I'm sure Michael looks back and I'm sure he says, "You know what? I wish I could have changed things because, listen, I could never, ever see me not being a part of my children's lives. I mean, it would destroy me."
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. I could never not be near him.
One person says, "Toni Marie, make a YouTube cooking channel."
I was thinking about that. Yeah, somebody told me that. My daughter-in-law now, my sweetheart daughter-in-law, my son's new wife, she told me to do that. So I said, "You got to help me with that because she's young. She's in her 20s. I'm up there. I don't know how to do that." You learned pretty quick, Jimmy.
Yeah.
You laugh. You're funny.
I tell you, it ain't easy raising kids. That's for sure.
No, I know. It's scary. Yeah, it's tough. Especially these days with everything that's going on.
Yeah. My daughter, Callie, is 12 years old. She's a teeny bopper. She's into fashion. And I took her shopping last week, and we went to the Staten Island Mall, and she goes into this, I forgot the name of this clothing store. And I called the lady. I said, "Miss," I said, "can you help us?" And she says, "No, Daddy." She says, "I don't need no help. I can pick my own clothes."
Yeah. Yeah, see?
She's a big shot.
Yeah, that's cute. That's good. But like I said earlier, the comment that when people say, she went on your show, knowing that what you are, I just want to say that again. You were the one that asked me. I thought you were legit, and I saw you cry when you spoke about the woman that innocently got killed. I think that you changed your life for the better. I still don't believe in ratting. And you have your two daughters, because I know that's a whole other story. You're a single dad and taking care of your kids. So kudos to you. And I wish you the best of luck. And
one guy says, "Toni, I would cherish you for life."
You would cherish me for life.
I'm just saying.
I don't know.
You have a lot of good comments out there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's funny. Listen, I'm not perfect. Trust me. You have no idea.
Oh, look. And thank you so much. Send Lisa my love. Mm-hmm. Send my love to your mom. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And once again, I hope you get a lot of good reviews and you get more people to follow you. And you make me laugh when you curse certain people out, but drop that. That guy ain't worth it. But you make me laugh when you curse him. It's funny.
You know what it is? Sometimes I go back and I look at TV shows. I remember, for example, Fonzie and Carmine the Big Ragu and Laverne and Shirley.
Oh God.
And I remember an episode where Shirley says something where there's some bad guy and says, I'm too good to even, do anything to you or say anything to you. And then Carmine, the Big Ragu, comes out and says, but I'm not too good. And then he grabs him out and he throws him and he gives him a beating.
Right.
I mean, listen, I'm not perfect, but sometimes you have to tell people what they are, and I have no shame in saying what they are. If you want to address me and call me out of my name, then I'm going to call you out of your name. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
But, whether you think it's cool or not, you know what? Welcome to life, and I'm going to give it right back to you.
Well, the truth hurts. The truth hurts. And I'm like you. Listen, a few times I've had to run into Carla. I don't even want to give her that much and say her name, and many times I want to approach her and like just scratch her eyes out. And I was with my husband the last time. He's like, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "No, Toni, the heck with her. You're better than her. You're not going to do that. You'll embarrass yourself for what? You don't want to embarrass yourself. You never did this far. Don't do it. She's not worth it. Look at her. Look at them. They're still going out. They're still doing their thing. So you know what?
But that's, what it is? That's the tiger in you.
My father used to call me Toni Tiger. They used to hold me down, and my brother, they used to tease me. So that's funny. That's funny. But no, I don't. My father used to say, "You be respectful. Always be respectful. Classy. Don't take no shit." So that's kind of hard to do that with those other two things. But I got to the point in my life, I really don't give a shit what the haters that are here watching me think.
Listen, forget about them. I mean, listen, you came a long way. You have a good husband, a good family. Your son, I spoke with him once, and he's a great kid. I call him a kid, but he's actually a man. And listen, you're at a good place right now.
That's right. Thank you so much. And stay with those girls. They're great. And I wish you all the luck, Jimmy. So just keep moving.
Thank you. Thank you for this interview. And I love you.
Love you too. Take care.
I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.